Yesterday was my 24th birthday, which is insane. Side note, I thought I was 24 like all year, and then I was like, oh wait, I just turned 24. But at the same time, it is weird because I feel like I'm now officially out of my early 20s. I am in my mid 20s, and I just feel like a completely different person. I always say this every year, which I guess is a really good thing, but from 22 to 23, I felt like a new person, and from 23 to 24, I really feel like a new person. Especially in the last about 6 months, I've changed so much about my life, and I really feel like God has been changing the way that I think and my priorities and just everything. So I thought it'd be good to do one of these videos. I haven't done one in so long. It's like 24 things I learned by the time I was 24. So I spent some time and sat down and made a list, and these are all the things that I feel like have really changed the way that I think and the way that I act in the last, I guess, year, and just what I've learned in the first 24 years of my life. I know that I'm still young, and I think that's important to remember, but I'm also getting older, which I am so content about. I'm actually glad to not be like super young anymore. I know like in the grand scheme I'm still super young, but mid-20s is a little bit older, you know? I'm not a teenager anymore, I'm not in my early 20s, and honestly it just feels more fitting to like who I am right now, which I guess is a good thing. Anyways, let me pull up my list and we are just going to go through these, and I'll kind of explain when it needs explaining, but let's get started. These aren't in any sort of order, I just was jotting them down, so here we go. My first thing that I've learned is don't bend the knee to others and be confident in your beliefs. I think it's really important that when you have really important values and beliefs, that you're very confident in them. And the more confident you are in them, whether that means learning more about them or whatever, the happier you'll be, the more content you'll be, the stronger you'll be. And by not bending the knee to others, I mean like don't always like add disclaimers to what you're saying, and don't always be so concerned about what you're doing affecting other people. And I don't mean this in like if you're, see, I'm adding disclaimers, but like not if you're like hurting other people or being harmful in any way, but I just mean like, you know, if I like sparkling water and someone else doesn't, I don't need to be like, oh yeah, sparkling water is bad. Like I used to be, this is more of like for people pleasers. I used to be such a people pleaser, and now if I like something, I like it, and I don't judge you if you like something else. So I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with being strong in your beliefs, and then also not being, I guess a people pleaser is a better way to put it than like bending the knee, but it just really is nice. It adds to your confidence. I feel like that flows really well into number 2, which is not every piece of advice is for you. I think especially with TikTok, for some reason, it's this like, I don't like beans culture. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, people will be making dense bean salads on TikTok, and like half the comments are like, what if you don't like beans? Then this wasn't for you. You can not add beans. You don't have to eat beans. No one's forcing you to eat beans. And there was really no reason to comment, because this is actually for people who like beans. Who would have thought? And I'm one of the people who doesn't like beans. So whatever, scroll or make it without the beans. And this has become a huge thing of like chronically online, just always being like, well, that doesn't work because this. Well, then it wasn't for you. And there are pieces of advice that will work for some people that won't work for others. Life is very nuanced. Everybody's living very different lives. But when someone is giving a piece of advice, if it in no way applies to you, don't apply, let it fly. That's a great saying. So I always keep this in mind when I'm giving advice, and this kind of goes with the first one, like not bending the knee just because my advice doesn't perfectly align with someone else. Okay, then it wasn't for you. But also when taking advice and realizing that you don't have to take every piece of advice, and kind of use a filter, but also you can keep it to yourself. Which then flows perfectly into number 3, which is don't take advice from someone who isn't living that aspect of their lives how you want. Like don't take workout advice from someone who doesn't work out. You know, like those kind of things. Don't take financial advice for someone who has a very bad financial life. And those are obviously very big, very obvious things, but this goes with everything. If someone is living a life that you do not want to live, you don't agree with their life choices, you don't like how their life has turned out, maybe don't take their advice. And it doesn't have to be like, yeah, they could give a good piece of advice here, but have, you know, poor advice over here. And that's where it's like, things aren't black and white. You gotta take where it applies and not just like let it flow when it doesn't apply. But I think that's a really good rule of thumb, just like standard. Like if they're not living the life you want in that area, maybe don't take advice in that area from them. Number 4 is something I learned a while ago, but I feel like I always need reminded, and it is that life is not actually about chasing happiness and being happy. It's more about being content. As my stepdad likes to say, don't let your highs get too high or your lows get too low. Being happy is great, but it's also an emotion, just like being angry or sad, where I feel like being content kind of goes outside the bounds of an emotion, and it's just like whatever hits me, it's gonna happen, life happens, good, bad, whatever. I'm just chill. And a lot of people like to add the word happy to this, like they think being content is happy, but I think for someone like me who used to struggle with chasing happiness, it's really important to differentiate that it's actually being content and not necessarily being super happy all the time. Because trust me, I have my bad days, but I'm overall content with my life. Number 5, I kind of have already mentioned quite a bit, but I believe there is nuance in a lot of things. Nuance is very important, and I used to really struggle being a black and white thinker on a lot of things, and you know, if someone said something, then I kind of write them off and I don't really trust them anymore. But that's just not really accurate to how life is. There are so many nuances to so many things, and it's just not really beneficial for anyone to be super black and white. Now, of course, there are things that are black and white in this world, but there are a lot more things that you could say are in the gray or nuanced, and there's a deeper conversation to be had. And I think what's also important to this is realizing that nuance is never going to be a full conversation that we could have on social media. I feel like everyone should automatically think, okay, there's nuance to this, you don't need to be commenting, it's fine. I feel like nuance is really good for relationships and in person. I feel like, just now I'm like thinking about how everything gets ruined when it's online. Like you say an opinion, everyone's like, ah! But there's probably nuance to it, and can I explain that in a 1-minute video on TikTok? Probably not. Can I explain it in a 20-minute video on YouTube? Probably not, because there's nuance and there's a lot of different ways to talk about this, and depending how you think and your background. So just remember that I believe there's nuance to a lot of things, and so do most people. Number 6 is something that my husband has taught me, and that is not everything's that deep. Some things are, most things aren't. Something that he says is that if everything means a lot, then nothing means anything. Whereas like if I'm always letting everything affect me, then when it actually comes to a situation that I need to be like actually freaking out about or actually be worried about, but I'm always worried about everything, then it makes it really hard for me to worry about that thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, and this could be very much one of those pieces of advice that like isn't for you. It is for me because I really struggle with this. Life has its ups and downs, and you don't have to take everything to heart. You don't have to freak out about everything. I would say something really beneficial has been figuring out what actually is important in my life. What are my values? What is the things that I'm willing to fight over and like die on this hill? And what isn't? And if it isn't, then whatever. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. If not, whatever. If someone disagrees, whatever. You know? So just remember that not everything is that deep. My next item is something that I've learned recently, and I didn't realize I was already kind of applying this to my life, but I heard someone say this, and it is your bubble of peace, protecting your bubble of peace. There are people that you can go to for anything and everything, and you can vent and say every little thing. They're not going to judge you. They're still going to love you. You're still going to be best friends. They're not going to tell anyone, and they're a trustworthy person. This is what you could consider like a safe person, like my best friend, my mom, my husband. But there are also people who are not safe, and there are people who are safe in some areas and not in other areas. And I think it's important to remember that the way you keep your peace is by not like divulging all your baggage to everybody, and also you don't have to carry the load for everybody. And I think it's really good too, and we'll get into this, like be a shoulder for someone to cry on, even if they're not one that you could cry on their shoulder. That's great and all, but also the people who you really are letting in, those few people, really think about who they are and who they can be trusted. If they can be trusted. Protect your bubble of peace. Backpacking right off of that, as much support as you're giving and offering, you also need to have someone that you're getting support from. As a Christian, I think this is very applicable because I cannot offer people forgiveness and grace where I feel don't deserve it if I'm not going to my creator, who I don't deserve forgiveness and grace from, being filled up by his love, grace, mercy, whatever, and then offering it to others. If my cup isn't full, I cannot give. But it also applies to not just God, but like I think of my husband as this type of person. Like he kind of helps fill up my cup and kind of gets my mind working when it's not, and he helps center me a lot, and I think I do the same for him. And so then it's easier for me to go be a really good friend or a really good sister or family member because I have God and my husband and other people who I can kind of lean on. And so when I'm giving, I'm not giving out of nothing, I'm giving out of abundance. And I think it's so much easier to do that. And going off of that, this is why it's so important to have your support, because I think I've also learned life is just so much better when you give more than you take. It doesn't always have to be even, it's fine. I've really come to terms with like, who am I to need all this stuff? Who am I to be better or to need to even the playing fields or be above someone? Like, I'm literally just me. Like, I'm literally just like nobody, honestly. Like, I am somebody and I have value as a human, sure, but I mean, like, my worth isn't any more worthy than someone else's worth. Like, we're all, like, we're people. So I've been really, really working on trying to just give more than I take. And if it's not even, it's not even. It's fine. And to sometimes be that person that someone's just ranting at me and it's like, oh my gosh, but I'm just there and I'm just taking it because maybe they need that person. And that's okay. And it doesn't have to be even, you know? This next one is so, okay, we're shifting here. We're shifting. But as spring is coming around the corner, I've probably had one of the worst, like, not worst, I don't even know how to explain. Just like January, February was really tough this year because it was so nasty and disgusting outside. And I haven't had seasonal depression in a while, but I really did start to get that, like, okay, I'm kind of suffering. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the literal season that it is outside. More important than we may think. We are humans, okay? We are kind of connected with nature in a way, and God created seasons, and even nature rests in winter, and we as humans should rest in winter too. And I think winter is really tough when you're trying to, like, I can make a whole video about this, but when you're trying to follow what society says and set goals in January and change your whole life and become this whole new person, and then it's literally dark and miserable outside, like, no, read a book, take a bath, relax, reflect, and just acknowledge that it will pass. And I think the seasons are such a great representation of life. Like, it will pass. Even if you're in the darkest day, the coldest day, the roughest day, you feel like crap, you haven't showered in 2 days and you're in your sweatpants and your bed and you're rotting all weekend, it will pass and spring will come, and the pool days are right around the corner. Because now that it's nice out, I'm like, oh, who is she? She's a new person. Like, everything's fine. So acknowledge the literal season, please, okay? And going with that, I would also, like, a little side note, like, have hobbies for each season, because you can't do the summer hobbies in the winter most of the time, and winter hobbies, you really need them. Really need them. Oh, I didn't even realize I wrote these back to back, but my next one is realize that everything passes, which is why I love that reflection of the seasons. Everything does pass eventually. Eventually you get through it. It could be the hardest time of your life, and trust me, I've been there. I have a rough past. I've got baggage, okay? I've been through things. It passed, and I'm so happy now. There's also, like, little things that happen that are just seem so in the moment, but they pass. Everything passes eventually, and it's tough sometimes, life sucks sometimes, but it does pass. Okay, shifting kind of again, with the whole goal setting, I've realized in the past couple years that, at least for me, setting like 1 to 3 bigger goals or 1 to 3 habits you're gonna start or change is way more beneficial than a list with a million categories and a million things you're gonna change about yourself, because guess what, you're not gonna do it. Let's be honest, we're not gonna do it. But if you're changing one thing, like this year, I'm really gonna drink more water. Or even what's better is, like, this week, okay? Let's stop saying year, that's a long time. This week, I'm gonna drink more water, and that's all my focus is. And once I get that habit going, then we're gonna work on going on our daily walks. Then we're gonna work on, you get what I'm saying? And this has been huge for me, especially I have completely changed the way that I eat and exercise and all that stuff in the last 6 months. Like, I pretty much only eat whole foods. I ate out on my birthday and I'm, like, sick today. Like, I feel hungover today from eating out. Didn't have a lick of alcohol, nothing. I'm hungover from eating out. So that shows you how much I've changed my diet, okay? But it only happened because A, surrendering to God. I have a whole video about it, but, like, B, just choosing that as my one habit I was gonna focus on. And as I just mentioned, going into my next thing, spending time with God is not only never a waste of time, but the best thing you can do. I know everybody who watches my channel isn't a Christian, but oh my gosh, what it does for you to just know that there is a creator who loves you and knows every single bad thing about you and still loves you anyways, and offers you forgiveness and grace and pushes you when you need pushed, but also gives you the strength to change. And just, like, sitting with him alone, reflecting, praying, worshiping him has never been a waste of time. And I kind of struggled over the last year of, like, oh, I need to spend more time with God, and realizing that it doesn't need to be anything crazy. Like, just right now, in the shower, whatever, like here and there. Like he's always with me, and it's never a waste of time, and I always feel more peace and comfort after just surrendering to God, and he's just so good. So I just had to throw that in because it wouldn't be me if I didn't. Okay, the next one, I've seen something similar. I didn't look up, but I was just thinking in my own life, this being pretty accurate. So like when you're sad, go outside. Okay, the sun, it's crazy how it cures everything. If you're feeling really uncomfy, like crawling out of your skin, overstimulate, oh, take a shower. It changes everything. Okay, showers hit. If you're lonely, you need to be around people. Even if you don't want to be, you just need to get around someone, get on the phone with someone, something. TikTok, no. People, yes. Phone call, yes. And if you're annoyed, take a nap or eat some food. It does wonders, as someone who gets annoyed a lot. Okay, I kind of touched on number 15, but it's so much easier to think of your life in days and weeks rather than months and years. If you focus on today and then you focus on tomorrow and you just focus on this week, everything is so much easier. There is a Bible verse that talks about this, which all wisdom comes from God, but like let tomorrow's worries worry about themselves essentially and worry about today. So just kind of, I guess, living more in the moment, appreciating more of just where you're at today. And it's just easier even like making goals, like the idea of eating healthy for the rest of my life. Now I'm actually really excited about that because I have like fully changed my lifestyle around this. But at first, the idea of eating only whole foods and not like processed sugar and all this stuff for more than a day was like the hardest thing ever. Thinking about it for more than a week, I was like, there's absolutely no way. And yet here I am 6 months later, I've lost 20 pounds. I don't even really like eating out. It's not really good to me anymore. I don't like all these processed foods. I'd rather just make it from scratch at home. What? I would not believe you 6 months ago because that was so hard. And here I am 6 months later. So days and weeks, people. But because there's nuance to everything, also have stuff to look forward to. This might just be a me thing, but I function so well as a human being when I have something to look forward to. Whether it's a trip in 6 months from now or a certain thing I'm doing this weekend, like going and playing pickleball with some friends on Saturday or whatever. I think always just having something to look forward to when the work week is over, or look forward to after work today, or look forward to when summer comes around, like an actual plan that is happening. It helps me so much. Like, I don't know why, I just always have to kind of have that next thing. Otherwise I feel like, what am I doing? I'm floating, I'm doing nothing, you know? And next is one we probably all should do more, and I should do more. But when I'm feeling like absolute crap, it's because I've been on my phone literally all day. It really is the phone, okay? So less scrolling, literally anything else. Even watching Netflix is better for me than scrolling on TikTok because I don't feel this like left out comparison, stuck in a mind trap, just scrolling infinitely. Then like if I'm watching Gossip Girl, it's Gossip Girl. In fact, there's so much to make fun of with Gossip Girl that's so unrealistic. TikTok, that's a little harder, okay? So literally anything else. Obviously it'd be better to go on a walk or read a book or whatever, but anything but scrolling, and I really do mean anything. Unless it's something worse, but you know what I'm saying. Next, I relate to a lot, but always be willing to grow and be open to change. Life is always going to be changing. You're always going to be growing. And the more you are okay with this and accept this, the better. This is something I learned like very early in my adulthood, like 18, 19. Things are always changing. Your mind is always changing a little bit, progressing a little bit more. You're always growing, and you should be. It is a really good thing to always be growing and changing as a person. Obviously, there's a difference between like your core values changing and like, okay, I actually changed my mind about this thing here, and maybe eventually maybe that does change a core value. I don't know, but always being open to change is really good. But not just like changing at the gust of wind, like not having anything set in stone in your life, but like if someone presents me with really great information, I'm not so close-minded that I can't hear that out, you know? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? This next one is actually something I know but like don't practice very often, but saying no is better than giving an excuse. Don't get caught up in lies, okay? Even if it's a simple thing. Just say no. No, I'm not going to that. No, I can't do that. No, that doesn't work for me, rather than like, oh, well, you know, I actually, like, just say no. Everybody appreciates it better. But also going with that, like, I didn't write this down, but can we as a generation, like, work on our flakiness? Because I struggle with this too, but we need to stop using like, oh, well, I'm feeling socially drained as like an excuse to ditch friends when you've had plans. I think it's really, really important, especially in this digital age, that like if you have plans, follow through, even if you go for like a little bit. It's really, Like if you say you're going, just go. Let your yeses mean yes and your no means no. That's a Bible verse. Also something my husband is like constantly trying to get in my head because I'm really, really bad about this. But let your no just mean no. And let your yes mean yes. And then once you make that decision, you say the thing, just stick with it. No excuses, no nothing, like just do it. Even if it is something for yourself. Okay, got it. This next one, my mother is going to be so happy to hear me say this because the amount of drama I've gotten from just not doing this, but sleep on it. It's a good saying for a reason, just sleep on it. There's a text that comes in, sleep on it. They don't need an instant response. Unless we're like in a conversation right now, even then you can say, I don't know, let me think about it. Okay, sleeping on it is actually so effective. And I mean literal, like go to bed, wake up the next day with a fresh mind, go on a walk, just sleep on it, think it through. Okay, we're getting towards the end, couple more. Wait, I kind of already talked about this. I guess I had this in 2 different points about the peace and safe bubble, but also like gatekeeping your personal information. There's a time and a place to be vulnerable, and if it's gonna help someone else, great. But there's also a time and a place to not be vulnerable. And sometimes with this age of the internet, we're a little too vulnerable and like exposing things that don't need to be exposed about ourselves, like very personal information that people can use to hurt you. But I don't even mean this internet wise because I'm pretty open and vulnerable on the internet, but like actual people, like sometimes people are pretty mean and sometimes people are evil and they want to use things against you. And so just be careful, I guess is what I'm saying about like who you offer this information to and if they're a trustworthy person, if they're in that circle or that bubble of peace that you've made, because you don't want it to come back and bite you in the butt. Okay, wait. Why did I write this so weird? My next one is that your life matters more when other people's lives matter more than your own, which is just a complicated way of saying think less about yourself, more about others, and don't be selfish. The more I think about myself, the more insecure I am, unhappy I am, not confident I am. I could always be thinking about something I need to change about myself or something like even this idea of like self-care all the time can often be harmful because all you're thinking about is yourself. How can I make myself feel better and how can I make myself look better or whatever it is. And there's a time and a place, okay? Nuance, remember? But overall, I feel like our generation is a little selfish. I don't think we actually have a self-love problem. We have like an overly self problem. Like we love ourselves too much. We say we don't, but we do. We do love ourselves. We just have a different way than what we think in our heads of what that even means. Basically, like all we do is think about ourselves. And so I'm really trying to I don't really matter that much, honestly. Like I really don't. I'd rather like do something to make my best friend happy or my husband happy or my brother or whoever it is, people I hang out with all the time, and like make their day than working on something that's gonna like make my day so great. And then that in turn does make my day so great and my life so great. So I'm just trying to be a way less selfish person. Like I even caught myself this year on my birthday being like, whatever. I guess we'll get lunch. Like I didn't really care that much. And I like hearing about other people's lives and what's going on with them more than I like talking about myself, which is crazy. If you know me, it's crazy because I've always been a very like, I don't know if I'd say selfish, but that's probably accurate. But like attention, I always need attention. I've always been like that. But I don't know. The older I get, I'm like, do I need attention? I don't really care. Let's talk about you. You know, I'm sure I could be better at it, but it's good advice. And number 24, what you eat daily and movement daily is more important than honestly probably any other self-care you could do for yourself. Here's the one time that is really good to be selfish is with your health. And I've come to realize this like so much. What I've seen people in my life go through and the possibility of what could happen with not living a healthy life, with being overweight or just eating crap all the time that makes me tired and brain fog and not moving, like it actually has dire consequences, like actually could result in death, but also could result in a poor life. And even 10 years from now, that could have terrible results. But think about when you're 80, okay? I want to be able to like jump up on the counter and grab something from the top shelf if I need to. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and go freaking run a marathon if I wanted to train for it. I don't know if that'd be possible when I'm 80, but you never know. Like that is more important to me now than a crumble cookie, okay? And I'm not saying you can't have a treat every once in a while. For me, I can't because I'm like an addict with food. But what I am saying is what you eat like day to day, your daily choices add up to your life, because that's what your life is. Your life is day after day after day. Your life is nothing more than all the days you live. So what you do daily really matters, and I really want to emphasize the eating and working out aspect of it, more even so the eating than anything. But it will impact your life long term, and I wish I could like make everyone do what I did in the last 6 months, just like change everything about the way that I think about food and stuff, because it has really been transformative, even just for my like brain and the way that I think. So anyways, Some of that I feel like was a little like yelly. I don't know, I didn't mean to be that way, but so I work better with tough love, so sometimes I have to like say things in a tough love way because that's how I, like if it's all nice and pretty and cute, I'm just like hee hee, but if someone's like, no, you need to do this or you'll die, or you need to do this or your life will stop, like then I'm like, okay, I'll start doing it. So that's kind of how I am. But anyways, I'm 24, excited about life, but also just really content with where I'm at. And I have a cold, which makes my nose really itchy. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you're able to take at least 1 or 2 of these things. Once again, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But live your life, enjoy your life. Have a great day, everybody. Love you.